The key difference in American football, the adaptation of American soccer in this context, is that it's much more physical. So I would compare it more, liken to the La Liga versus EPL. When you look at EPL, it's very direct, it's very physical, it's fast moving, whereas La Liga also fast moving, but probably more sophisticated in the tactical application, technical ability of players, soccer IQ, things like that. Messi coming across is a big step for us. Obviously, he's continuing to have success. He's brought his buddies from Barcelona with him, so they're enjoying their time in Miami. They have to be bringing something special to their game from a footballing perspective. It doesn't matter what position they play, but we're looking for, obviously, top-level talent. As far as standards, we won't compromise on standards and really are going to be as selective as we can to make sure that we're identifying the right student-athlete for our program. The challenge with parents that we find is really just helping them understand the entire experience.
So welcome to the fourth episode of the IKF Workshop Diaries, and today we are thrilled to have Tony Mohammed, the Chief Operating Officer of BlackRock FC, with us. Tony brings a wealth of experience in football development, having played a pivotal role in shaping BlackRock FC into a leading club in the US. With his deep expertise in both the technical and operational aspects of the game, Tony is here to share invaluable insights on the collaboration between BlackRock FC and India Khelo Football, and how they are working together to bridge gaps in Indian football through the IKF Season 4 workshop. So, hi Tony, welcome to this episode. Any few words that you would like to say before starting off this podcast?
Yes. First, thanks for having me. Obviously, very excited about our new partnership with India Khelo Football. I think as far as BlackRock and our growth and development opportunities for aspiring players abroad, we're excited about this one. We know inherently that there's a lot of talent in India that is yet to be explored and provided a pathway to top level football and also university that we could talk about. So it's a new venture that we're very excited about.
Yeah. And before starting off this podcast, just a question popped up in my mind because you are staying in US, if my guess is perfect. Yes. So can you tell me the difference why Americans call it soccer rather than football? Just a question to you.
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the exact answer for that, other than obviously North Americans have adapted a lot of things to claim to be their own. In other sports, there was American squash for a period of time. Obviously we have American football where they throw the ball instead of kick the ball. So I'm not sure where the origins of the name came from, but nonetheless, it's football to me. And so soccer, football, whatever it is, it's the game that we love. And obviously it's a growing leaps and bounds in this country right now, for sure.
Yeah, and it all depends on the love of our game. The names doesn't matter.
That's right.
So coming back to the BlackRock FC, so can you tell us about BlackRock FC, means how it was established, how it is growing, and what it has developed into, and how it is contributing to US football?
Yeah, so the club was started by my university teammate, John Moody. He had grown Berkshire School, which is a residential boarding school in Western Massachusetts, into being one of the most predominant residential boarding schools in the country. I think they went on almost a 60-game winning streak for a period of time. And he was also bringing in top-level talent from around the world. And so in a traditional residential boarding school in the United States, they put football in the fall, but in the winter, they would make you play another sport. So you yourself could experiment with ice hockey or basketball or something like that. And in the spring, they would do athletics or tennis or golf, things like this. So the challenge that he was faced with was that we have these high-level players, some of them coming from pro academies, all of them very passionate footballers. How do you feed the appetite for players to provide more for them in what we would call the off season? So he essentially put together a group that would equate to like Sunday football, where we had a number of different schools from the region come together to play. And then from there was more interest to play other teams. And then in our early history, it was around 2013, IMG Academy hosts the IMG Cup, which is one of the largest events in the United States. They had a group pull out last minute from their super group. The super group is usually catered to pro academies, again, globally. It's a showcase division within the tournament where they have young aspiring pros in pro academies showcasing their talents in America. They come for a tour, but also to play in the tournament. So because of Berkshire School and John Moody and sort of BlackRock in its early days was developing some notoriety, they were invited to play. So he put together the team sort of last minute. They had cotton T-shirts. Our logo today was made on WordPress in short time, and they got to the event. They won their group. They advanced to the final. They lost to Tottenham Hotspur's Academy 2-1 in overtime. So that was sort of the first sort of step towards formalizing what we have today. Through our time, we've had up to 40 residential boarding schools in partnership, which adopted a similar model that I described, where we had regions, teams, schools within the regions come together. The collection of players would play as teams. We take them out to different tournaments, showcase events, and then also help facilitate their university placement process. So that's sort of the first couple chapters. And then in 2018, John and I together worked with Northwood School to launch our first residential academy. So that's also in partnership with a residential boarding school. The key difference here is that instead of only playing football in the fall, they would play a year-round academic year football schedule, so they could specialize in football during their time with us. So it's a 10-month program. It's really important for us for the student athletes to represent their schools. So they play a school schedule wearing school uniforms in the fall, September to November. Then after November, they change their uniforms. Now they represent BlackRock, playing against other clubs and in club events. So that was 2018. So we're still early stages, but we've had a lot of really great success as far as we're concerned, really about the development of student athletes and also placement into university programs, and then also those who've gone on to be professionals. So so that's the model and project that we're into now. We currently have 3 residential boarding schools in partnership, and it's going great.
And just to let you know that the way you are speaking, it's quite unique. Means I'm able to connect more. It is quite calm and composed. So coming to the second question, means what exactly is your role in BlackRock FC as a chief operating officer?
So from the beginning, as I mentioned, John had developed the program into being quite expansive as far as the reach and opportunities for players. So really my expertise and background, I was a university coach for 20 years and really was looking for an opportunity to work at the sort of sub-elite level or the youth level, where I could lend my experience to players who were still aspiring for more. So as the chief operating officer, I've brought sort of operating expertise in sort of logistics and management, whereas John's sort of a visionary and really, big picture as far as designing programs and what the opportunities could be. And so I'm sort of boots on the ground, sort of making sure everything works and is moving forward. So I've had, we're very young still, in my opinion. So I've worn many hats. I've done marketing, promotion, I've created operating budgets, things like this. I'm also the general manager for our USL League 2 side. So I would say that a lot of my sort of direct day-to-day is in operations. And then John and I both share in the recruitment process, where I spend more of my time in the Caribbean, North America, into Asia and parts of Europe, whereas John most recently has focused a lot of his time in South America, some in the Caribbean and other parts of Europe as well.
And just to ask you that, how is US football, if you talk about soccer, US football, and how it is different than the football in different countries, or if you talk about Indian football in general?
I think the key difference in American football, the adaptation of American soccer in this context, is that it's much more physical. So I would compare it more, liken to the La Liga versus EPL. When you look at EPL, it's very direct, it's very physical, it's fast moving, whereas La Liga also fast moving, but probably more sophisticated in the tactical application, technical ability of players, soccer IQ, things like this. So where we find our players from abroad who come to the U.S. Are challenged most is in the physicality of the game. That's again, when we think about university level football, it's very physical. More athleticism is focused. Not to say that there isn't, there are teams certainly at the university level, at MLS level, where they play the beautiful game, tactically organized, all these different things. But physicality is, as far as we could tell, is the biggest difference from players from international markets. When we think about the profile of an Indian player from India, my guess is that the physicality is something that they would also have to adapt to. But again, I know that soccer or football is a young sport in India, and so there's plenty of opportunity, certainly if they make the transition early enough, for them to get that experience and development opportunities with us, and as we prepare them for their transition.
Yes, and talking about Indian football, we all know that India Khelo Football is, in the limelight in progressing Indian football. So how did that collaboration come into with India Khelo Football?
Yeah, I think a lot of it for us, we're always looking for new markets, for new opportunities to provide pathways for players into the United States. And so India has always been something that's been in the back of my mind as a market that we felt had huge potential. And so I had done some outreach just through social networks and connected with one of the co-founders, and immediately felt a connection in that we were aligned in our goals and objectives when it comes to players or student athlete opportunities. There's a lot of people in this space globally who bring their own sort of goals and objectives to the project. As you can imagine, there's people who are very money driven and really focused on the bottom line and trying to, leverage opportunities to line their pockets. For us, it's never been about that. It's always been about providing opportunities for players and doing the best that we can to develop them into not only top footballers, but also into people who will go on to be meaningful members of their community, future leaders, things like that. So Khelo, India Khelo Football for us was aligned straight away as far as the goals and objectives, and we felt it was a good partnership. And again, knowing that the work that they're doing, as broad as it is, they've obviously had amazing growth in a short period of time, but really focused on the right things, which is meaningful opportunities around pathways, but also a focus on education, in my view, which are important to us as well.
Yeah, and talking about the student athletes, so means in US, what is the regime for you in training those student athletes? Because for them, football is also important, education is also important, so they have to manage both. So what is the procedure like, and what will you be bringing from that to the workshop?
Yeah, for us, when we think about our recruitment process, we're really looking at three sort of areas to identify a prospective player for our program. The first, obviously, is football. So they have to have a high level of talent, obviously a lot of passion for the game. The second is also academics. They don't have to be perfect students, but they have to be aspiring to be the best student they can be. And the third is leadership or character. They need to be demonstrating to us that they have the maturity to take this opportunity and also be the best representatives of themselves, their families, their communities, and obviously for the club as well. So when we think about their transition to us, this is as much about football as it is about education. And so you can't come to a school and only focus on football. And obviously, if you're very academic driven but don't have the footballing talent, then our opportunity to prepare you for the transition is limited as well. So all of these things go together in identifying a profile of a student athlete. So when we come to India to evaluate, all of these things will be very important to us, and one can't go without the others.
Yeah, and just like you mentioned that when you will be coming to India, you will be noticing these things, you will be assessing these things in a player. So what you want from a player that will you will tick that mark ki, this player has this quality, this player has this quality, he can grow forward. So what are those qualities that you think you will assess in a player in this workshop?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, they have to be bringing something special to their game from a footballing perspective. It doesn't matter what position they play, but we're looking for obviously top level talent. When we think about the players who've come through our program, our star model is Jack Harrison, who's currently with Everton FC in the English Premier League. He was left Manchester United Academy by his own choice to pursue this opportunity. And what we have learned from his experience and those who've come after him is that if you are if you have the talent and the passion for the game, the residential boarding school experience provide intangibles that you can't really define in some ways. And so when we think about player development, traditionally you would look at technical, tactical, physical, but for us, there's also mental, which is a big part of it, emotional, and lifestyle. And so, being in these residential boarding schools, you're provided these opportunities to develop soft skills and other aspects of your personality that we think make stronger footballers. And so I guess to the point is that the footballing is really important, but also the openness and character and willingness to embrace this opportunity and really make the most of it is really important to us as well. So it's we'll be speaking to the players themselves, but also understanding the goals for the family. If it's only about being professional, this isn't the pathway for them. They have to be broad-minded and thinking about education and making sure that it's important to their values, because that's what this opportunity is. And when you look at if you were to look at where our players have gone on to university, many of them have gone on to Ivy League schools, top research institutions, the highest level schools for football and for education, or for both. And so that starts with the identification process and making sure that the student athletes are prepared for every aspect of this opportunity, and we'll make the most of it.
Yeah, and just to ask you that since you mentioned earlier that BlackRock FC is in younger stages of its development, so has there been any Indian player in the football club yet, or there has only been European or US footballers?
Yeah, so currently we have over 20 countries represented within the club. And so we will have our first Indian-born player in the club next year. He was at a different school, wasn't having the best experience, found us through our network, and so he'll be joining us next year. Having said that, this is all new to us, and so we're excited about obviously about coming to India and also exploring the talent. What I do know is, as I mentioned, is that I'm confident that there is more than one, probably multiple of players who just need the opportunity like this to really become the best versions of themselves as footballers, as students, as people. And so it's a really exciting adventure for us, and we can't wait to get there.
Yeah, and talking about the workshop, because you'll be traveling from US to India, and it is conducted in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, which are three of the busiest cities in India, and which are one of the biggest cities in India, if we talk about. So, what will be the process like to maintain the quality and the procedure of the workshop? Because you want the workshop to be perfect in all the three cities. So, what will be the procedure and to not let the quality dampen?
Yeah, I think the thing for our program is that it is a select program. So we estimate that we will put eyes on probably 4,000, 4,500 players a year to bring in a select group of 30 or 40 maybe. So if you do the math there, 10% more or less of our players that we evaluate are those who are offered opportunity to come. So as far as standards, we won't compromise on standards and really are going to be as selective as we can to make sure that we're identifying the right student athlete for our program. We've been to countries where we haven't found one, or we've been to countries where we found 10, 15, 20 players, but then are only selecting a handful of that group. So the other thing that is important here for us is that we see this as a long-term relationship. And so this, as an initial phase, is really for families and for organizations to learn more about BlackRock and the work that we do, look at our history and what the opportunity is. And our feeling is that once families and communities start to look at it and understand it in a meaningful way, then they will soon decide, yes, this is something that we're interested in, or that's not for us. But those
Yeah.
who are interested will find a lot of value in the opportunity and will, ultimately work towards, trying to find an opportunity with us. And so sometimes the hardest things we have to do is tell a player who's expressed interest that, sorry, you're not for us or you're not ready. And so because they can come at different times, often we'll say you need to work on your academics. We'll be back in a year. Let's see how you progress. Or your football level isn't good enough. Here are aspects that we think can help you improve. We'll come back in a year, or we'll check with your coach to see how you're improving, and maybe the opportunity opens up down the line. So, um, I guess to your question is that it's a select program, and so our standards are high, and we won't compromise. But in the initial stage, again, I think it's all new, so we really just want to get the message out about our program, the opportunity, how it's different, why it could be meaningful to a young player's sort of trajectory in life, and open the doors for opportunities for education and football.
Yes. And since like you mentioned that about the quality of the workshop, so how will you measure the success of the workshop, especially from BlackRock's view?
Yeah, I think what we've been impressed by with India Khelo is the level of organization. The co-founders, the team, everyone is so professional and really organized. And so a lot of this, again, we haven't been yet, but a lot of this is developed on trust and believing that they're going to do the best that they can to bring the highest concentration of talent together. And so that's our view going into it, at least in the first year. The other understanding is that they are young and obviously learning as they go in some aspects. So our hope in a true partnership is that we can bring value to their process and they can bring value to our process, and that we find a good balance and partnership that could grow in the years to come.
Yeah. And talking about the success, like what will be the benefits provided by BlackRock's FC to the player that has been selected from the ranks in this workshop?
Yeah, I think the for us the outcomes for us we measure outcomes on their placement into university, but also life success. And so we've had many success stories for players coming from different parts of the world. Some from, as an example, John had recruited a player from rural Zimbabwe who grew up on a chicken farm in rural Zimbabwe. He came to America, was a member of our program, went on to Williams College, which is one of the top, if not the number one liberal arts college in the country. Played at a very high level, had amazing distinction as an individual player, and now he's a professional commodities trader in Chicago, and obviously has made a beautiful life for himself financially and everything else. So there's many players stories like that for players who come through our program, and so for a player from India who were to come to our program, they would be getting lots of football. So we train every day, sometimes twice a day for 10 months of the year. So it's probably more football than they've seen in their life. And every time we tell a prospective player that you're going to play every day, we always get big smiles. Everyone's really excited about playing every day. But what they learn is how passionate are they about the game? How meaningful is the game to them? Because when you train every day, twice a day, it becomes a lot. And so you're going to be asked questions about how much do I care about the game? What goals are really attainable for me? And once we get an understanding of that, then we can start to project on where we think they could place from a university perspective or even from a professional perspective. So when it's 7 a.m. and it's cold outside and your knee hurts and your bed's warm and you have to get up for training, those who can find the internal motivation, the intrinsic motivation to get up, be on time, be active, be lively, bring the most to that session are those who generally project the highest. For the others, they will find a way, but it may not be to the top level football at the university level or even professional level. And so it's not to say that we won't work with them or not focus on them. It's just as far as their goals that are attainable, it may be that we have to readjust those as we have to move forward.
Yeah. And talking about the feedback that you will be giving to the parents, as well as to the students or the kids that will be present in the workshop. So, feedbacks to the kids is quite easier because they listen to you as a coach. But to the parents, it's a bit difficult. And talking about the Indian mentality is that sports is still not considered a field to pursue. So, how difficult or how challenging do you feel that the feedback will be to the parents, especially
Yeah,
the ones that are a bit negative?
yeah. I think the challenge with parents that we find is really just helping them understand the entire experience. And so, what I've just described to you is that a player who may be coming to us with the goal of being professional, at some point, if the phone isn't calling, if the pro scouts aren't calling, then we have to readjust their goals and ambitions. But at the end of the day, this experience is preparing them for the transition to university. And so, if it in this country we have three divisions within the university: Division One, Division Two, and Division Three. But John and I both come from educational backgrounds, and so this is a platform that is educating players through football, through a traditional education, and even through the experience of being in a residential boarding school community. And so, no matter the outcome, our goal is always to get them to a university that where they're gonna find success as a footballer. We're vetting the schools on the coach's pedigree and history, the success of the team, the conference that they're in, the part of the country that they're in, the academics quality of the school. Do they have the major of studies that they are interested in? All these things become relevant when we think about where the players go. So for parents to understand that we won't just send our players anywhere is really important. We
Yeah.
take a lot of care and individualized attention in making sure that we're meeting the needs of the player. They're understanding where their opportunities for growth are, and together we collaborate to help them with their university placement. So when it comes to helping parents understand, footballing, football isn't a career path. In some cases they're right because we know the odds are stacked against them. But this
Mhm.
opportunity is a chance for them to leverage the players to leverage their passion for the game to access opportunities for education. And that's really the most important things for families to understand.
Yeah. And talking about the eligibility of the players that will be present in this workshop, it's from 2006 to 2013. In between this years, the players that are born will be playing in the workshop. So, keeping aside Indian footballers, talking about the US system, the US football system, what do you think is the technical proficiency? Where do you think do they lack in the technical proficiency in football? If you talk about US football in general.
Yeah, if I were to speak to sort of the general qualities of an American footballer, I would say that there's been a lot of growth in the time that I've been involved in the game in the United States. I came across in '93 to play university level football. So the technical aspect of the game has grown exponentially. I think the American footballer is generally has high qualities in athleticism, and that always has remained to be a strength.
Mhm.
And where I think the game has grown the most is probably the tactical organization and sort of the soccer IQ of the American-born player. I don't know if we're at the same. Well, the answer is we're not at the same level as other more developed countries who have more years of history than we do. But it is emerging and continuing to grow in this area as well. When we look at the strength of our domestic league, MLS has come a long,
Mhm.
long way, and the quality of football is obviously much higher than it's ever been.
Yes.
Messi coming across is a big step for us. He's continuing to have success. He's brought his buddies from Barcelona with him, so they're enjoying their time in Miami. So there's a lot of eyes on American football. There's a lot of investment, and there's a lot of organizations like us who aren't in the professional setup who are bringing high level talent into the country that will benefit them, but also benefit the game in the United States, is our view. And
Yeah.
so that's probably the best I can give you as far as a profile of the American player. When I think about the Indian player profile, again, we talked about this earlier. Is my guess is that they do have some technical aspects that are obviously developing. But to me, I think the likelihood is that the physicality of the game is going to be their biggest adjustment, and
Yeah.
also obviously rising to the quality of the technical. tactical aspect, which will come in time as well.
Yeah, and since you mentioned about the Indian footballers, we also have our own league, ISL, Indian Super League, and it started from 2014, and in 10 years we have seen growth, but there's a feeling that it still can improve a lot because the level is still quite low as when we see the matches and when we compare it with European football or American football, we think the level is still very low. But let's see how we grow. But talking about American football and about the FIFA World Cup 2026, USA is one of the hosts. So how's the preparation going in US regarding the FIFA World Cup?
Yeah, there's definitely a groundswell of excitement and enthusiasm for the lead up to the World Cup. Obviously, this year we were host to Copa America, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Some had questions about the quality and standards of the pitches and security and different things that happened during the event. Next year they're hosting the FIFA Club World Cup, which is a big one as well. And so there's and again, as I mentioned, Messi being here, there's a lot of eyes on the domestic league. So there's a lot of enthusiasm and passion and interest and investment going into football in the United States right now. I live in the Boston area, and so the last cycle that when they hosted it was in '94.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm trying to remember, but Boston was a hub, and we know that it will be a hub as well. My wife is a university coach. Their field has been a host site for countries in the past. So we're just waiting for the announcement of where the groups will be. And I've already got a front row seat for training for one of the countries on the pitches nearby. But Foxborough Stadium, where the New England Patriots and the New England Revolution play, that's going to be a host site as well. So it's always energizing. Obviously, World Cups are energizing to countries. Obviously, America is a vast country, but there's been just an amazing. I don't know. In my view, soccer has always been a big part of my life, and I've been obviously paying attention to it. But when you hear people who don't know anything about football talking about Messi or talking about the English Premier League or the Spanish League or the German League, the coverage is so amazing now. I wish it was like this when I was growing up because you struggle to find a game on TV now. But when you hear people who aren't football people talking about football, it's exciting to me because there's sort of a general level of understanding, positive or negative. It doesn't matter to me as long as they're paying attention. So It's an exciting time.
Exactly. And just another question popped up in my mind. We have seen the USA women's team. They have been champions of the FIFA Women's World Cup quite numerous times. But talking about the men's team means they are still developing. So what do you think is the difference between the two of them?
I think at least from the women's perspective, I think the North America in particular were at the forefront for providing opportunities for girls and for women. When we think about the global perspective, there's some countries who are sort of forward thinking in that sense when we look at the Scandinavian countries. And so a lot of that, I think, is when you look at the history of the U.S. women's soccer. I'm from Canada. So the success of the Canadian women's national team, I think a lot of that is based on opportunities for girls and for women in the last 30 to 40 years. Where we're seeing a key difference now is that the other countries are catching up. If you look at the success of the England women, obviously Spain women are doing quite well. Colombia, had a great run in the Olympics. Brazil as well. So there's other countries who are starting to catch up. My view is that with the professionalization of the women's game in Europe, I think there's going to be more competition for the U.S. women or the North American-based women, where the professionalization, you're training like a pro, you're in a pro academy, you're in a pro structure. The women's domestic league here has had a number of different iterations. It's still, run by, high net worth, private sort of ownership. So I think it needs time to mature where they can build this sort of professional academy infrastructure below it. Once that happens, then I think the U.S. women can continue their world dominance at that stage. But in the short term, I think we're going to see a gap where other parts of the world will emerge as strong global contenders.
Yeah. And just like you mentioned that since USA is preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, we at India are thinking that we at least qualify for the 2034 World Cup, because we are growing, and a country with 1.3 and 1.4 billion people, we want our team to perform well in the FIFA World Cup, but first we have to qualify. So let's see, we are still hoping for that for the 2034, and that is what the preparations here are going on. But let's see how we develop in the future. But coming back to the workshop that will be held, just the last question to you: that what do you think will BlackRock FC means? What will be the tenure of this collaboration? Is it a future thing? Means, are you thinking of that? And if you are thinking of it, how are you thinking to develop Indian football in general?
Yeah, I think right now, early stages, we're still thinking about this opportunity to provide opportunities for kids in India and bring them to the United States. As far as the future goes, our hope is that we could develop deeper relationships with India Khelo, where we could come not just for the workshops, but potentially do some work within the communities. One, for identifying talent, but two, for also helping clubs develop their own infrastructure, whether it's through coaching methodology, tactical development, sort of coaches workshops. And so I think these are opportunities where it's impacting a larger community, because if you can empower the leaders within those communities to be better coaches, to be more equipped, to prepare, to create better environments for the student athlete, for the players, then there'll be more talent emerging out of those communities as well. So I think this is just the beginning. We certainly are looking at this as a long-term relationship, starting with this workshop. But as far as the future goes, I think sky's the limit as far as we're concerned. And I mentioned we're excited about it, and looking forward to any opportunity to help the Indian market grow.
Yeah, and we are also hoping that this collaboration goes on for a long time in the future as well. So yeah, that brings us to this end of the episode. It was a great episode talking to you. Any words that you would like to say about the workshop, and especially about this podcast that just happened?
I'm just really excited. As I mentioned, I think it's fortuitous that as far as the timing goes for us and for India Khelo. I'm so inspired by the work that they're doing and their true intent, which is to help players and providing opportunity for players. That's always been, the ethos of our organization, is helping young players find opportunity and helping them onto the next level. So I couldn't be more excited about it, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah. So that is it from our side. This is the fourth episode of the IKF Workshop Diaries. It was great chatting to Tony Mohammed from BlackRock FC. And do register for the workshop, whoever is watching this video, because it will eventually enhance your performance, and you can help Indian football in general. So yeah, that is it. And we shall close the episode now. It was great chatting to you once again. And that is it from my side, founder and presenter of All About Football, Atawaris Farsi, signing off.